This week you said you saw a story about airline tickets, airfare coming down domestically in the United States. There being some economic factor there. We're wearing out CNBC, and we're giving CNBC a lot of attention this week. The headline was on this story, plane tickets are getting cheaper as domestic travel demand weakens. I'll tell you what, Dr. O, I'm not seeing it. Number one, I travel all the time, as you know, and I've been catching a lot of middle seats, number one, and a lot of overbooked flights and paying a lot of money for them relative to the good old days. And I continue to complain about how people dress for airline travel. You know, I can be as grumpy an old man as you'd like me to be. But you saw this story and you're like, yes, this is a symbol. This means something, or a signal perhaps. So what are you taking from this?
Well, look, I think the air travel really rebounded during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
As soon as people were able to travel again, to get out, they did. And so you saw a big surge in leisure travel right after the restrictions, the COVID restrictions were pulled back.
There was a lot of stimulus money invested in airfare. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that.
Yes. And so that is, we saw a big rebound. But now we're starting to see the slowdown. I mean, if you look at the price of airfares, it's down significantly. And you're right. People are still traveling, right? But the demand is slowing. And so that slowdown is showing up in prices. If you consider, for example, that, in the last couple months, we saw the price of airfare decline, in March, in February by 4%, and in March by 5.3%. Those are 2 months in a row of pretty steep declines in airfare prices. And it looks like that's actually accelerating, right? It's getting worse. The declines are getting larger, on a month over month basis. And so I think this is an industry that's kind of primed for a slowdown, in terms of, not just demand, but, prices, profit margins for these airlines, but also maybe employment in the sector could take a hit in the months ahead.
Well, obviously that wouldn't be good for the industry, but I'm not seeing it anecdotally. Just not yet. Planes are still max capacity. The story suggests that off peak is where you're gonna find your deals. I've tried that route as well. I haven't seen it. Not just yet. And as you said, in terms of some of these things that happen in the economy, that there, you don't see them, but then all of a sudden at once, you do.
Yeah. And I get it. It's a very much a matter of you're a business traveler, right? And so the destinations, the routes you're taking are potentially, still somewhat busy. And potentially people are not taking those, vacation trips, right? Vacations to the hotter, destinations. Who knows what's going on under the surface, but just in general, the price declines are very interesting in light of the fact that, remember, airlines also rely on, airline equipment and tools for maintenance, that some of them will actually be impacted directly by tariffs. And so the fact that their airline cost could go up while the price, while demand may not be sufficient, and at the price that they could pass on, they won't be able to pass on those price increases to consumers, those cost increases to consumers, is a bit concerning for the airlines.
Well, let's talk about it in those terms. I mean, it's, again, I think it's, most American travelers, most international travelers, whatever, they think about their experience on the airline as, the seat they get and the quality of the flight and their experience getting out, getting through TSA and getting their bags and leaving. There's an entire industry up underneath this thing. On the tariff front, just very specifically, I mean, you have two major manufacturers in the world of commercial airplanes that we would use here in the United States domestically. Airbus Industries, which is a European cooperative, and Boeing, which is a U.S. based company. If in fact there are issues, I mean, with tariffs that are protracted, you have one major manufacturer that is based in Europe and you have the other major manufacturer that's based here in the United States. Will that set up, specific market advantage in this case for Boeing if the tariffs on the EU countries stay in place?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you end up with less airline travel that ends up hurting both of them. You look at the World Bank and the IMF, and you look at all of the forecasts for the global economy. The major banks, I was just looking at a JP Morgan, forecast for the global economy. And it's not looking good. The recession risk, and a global economic downturn, is very much have very much increased. Downside risks have very much increased. And so I'm not sure that Boeing benefits necessarily from this situation. I think that declining demand will actually drag everyone down, along with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a concern.
Well, that's, and I appreciate the answer to that. And I don't know if that question is a fair question. I mean, certainly it requires some forward projection, but I appreciate you wrestling that way.
It is a fair question in the sense that, look, you have to think about the economy is supply and demand. Let's go back down to the very basics. And if the labor market starts to fall, to ease, or even crack, demand for everything goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And the contraction usually starts with discretionary spending. It usually starts with leisure travel, dining out, hospitality, like hotels and motels, right? Mm-hmm. That's where it starts. And so if you get a decline in aggregate demand at the global level, then what you end up with is those companies, regardless of whether they're in the US or across the border or across the ocean, well, they're going to take a hit. When Americans travel abroad, they don't say, hey, I'm going to choose Boeing this time or Airbus.
Right. And certainly most airlines have, with the exception of like a company like Southwest, where it's literally their entire fleet is set up exactly the same. It's all Boeing 737s.
Exactly.
Most airlines have And
Delta, I noticed my latest Delta flights were Airbus flights, right?
Yes.
So exactly. So, I mean, yeah. So that I hope that helps answer the question. But, whenever in doubt, just think about supply and demand and kind of what the budget constraint for households look like.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you spend your money on? What happens to income, the income side of the budget constraint? If income goes down, what are the first things you start to cut? You're not cutting your grocery bill,
No.
First. You're cutting your vacation.